Welcome to Tokyo Wave, recorded in a live studio in Harajuku, Japan, with your hosts Aaron and Parker.
Today on Tokyo Wave, we have a lot to talk about. We are going to talk coronavirus. We're going to talk about the state of emergency. We're going to talk about this state of impending doom. This and more today here on Tokyo Wave.
So this is episode 0 of Tokyo Wave. So on Tokyo Wave, we're going to bring you weekly updates from our studio in Harajuku, Japan. This is Japan's most fashionable quarantine bunker, centered around segments where we ignore carefully written scripts and babble on about all sorts of crazy stuff.
Babble, babble.
So brace yourselves. This is episode 0 of Tokyo Wave.
We are your hosts,
Aaron Randall
and Parker Allen. We will bore you with our whole life stories later in this episode. But first, we have to talk about the coronavirus, COVID, or as is known in the slums of Shaolin, Wu-Tang virus.
Dollar, dollar bill, yo.
Hey, Dad, I heard a new radio show called Tokyo Wave. Have you heard about it?
Tokyo Wave.
Oh, it's those that just keep on talking.
Check it out. It's called Tokyo Wave.
Son, you must never watch that podcast ever again.
Ever again.
So what are we going to talk about this week? Dear God, there's so much going on. One thing we want to cover in this podcast are obviously news highlights.
Well, so and actually, the idea actually. Yeah, so I wrote this kind of, I wanted to make it look extemporaneous, but basically,
Nice word.
I think for the episode 0, we actually go through the segments. Mm-hmm. And then we explain each segment, and then we almost kind of explain what we're going to say, and then we give like a sample. Like, for instance, one segment is This Week in Japan, news highlights, funny commentary, and the weird thing of the week.
Let's get separate, spaced out recorded versions of those, and then I'd like to edit them in post.
Yes, definitely.
So to get us started, this week we're going to cover This Week in Japan. News highlights. Funny commentary.
Isn't that so funny?
The weird thing of the week.
Oh, hell no!
Tokyo Panic Room. Japanese politics. Wow. Yena yena bill, y'all. Let's talk about creative stuff time.
It ain't no joke, as Rakim said.
All right, great. So let's get started.
All right, so I have some news highlights here. You know, all with this coronavirus, COVID, virus news everywhere, it's really hard to, be upbeat. The mood right now is just so negative. And the GG Press put out a piece of news that I think made everyone very happy, or at least made me happy. It let us know that Kirin is going to release 2 new whiskey brands.
Oh, thank God. Perfect timing.
And of course, because this is Japan, the press release was totally unironic. We just think you might like 2 new whiskey brands right around now. Yeah. Go nuts.
Yeah, and I guess another big thing on everyone's mind is the Tokyo Olympics. I think according to Kyoto News, 70% of Japanese don't expect the Olympics to be held as scheduled.
Yes, and 100% of everybody else outside Japan agrees with them.
Just a matter of time.
Yes, well, it's a real huge issue for Japan because obviously the Tokyo 2020 Games are already reported to be the most expensive Olympic Games in world history.
Oh my
goodness.
goodness.
The Japanese government and the Tokyo metropolitan government as well has bankrolled an enormous amount of public funds in order to make this game happen. Gamies?
Yeah. And for those who aren't in Japan, I mean, Parker and I have been here, almost
11 years, exactly.
11, yeah,
Yes.
yeah, 11 about. But, everything is branded Tokyo 2020, the taxis, every company on, advertisements that go nationwide on TV, they have the Tokyo 2020 Olympic icon
I don't know if you knew about this, but actually, this is an interesting fact, actually. In addition to being the most expensive games ever, the 2020 games also have the title of being the most well-sponsored Olympic Games in history.
Oh, wow.
There are a bunch of sponsors. I would give you the exact number, but I'm too lazy to look it up.
So, according to Wikipedia, as of 2015, the total sponsorships for the 2020 games reached about 1.3 billion USD, which set a record which was previously held by Beijing during the 2008 Olympics.
Well, I mean, with this coronavirus business, I feel like we're all looking for some kind of positive news, and Reuters gave us a good positive piece, kind of. Reuters recently reported that Japan's suicides are at a historic low in 2019. But there's a but. The but is more teens are killing themselves.
Ah, jeez.
That's terrible.
Yeah. But we all know Japan and South Korea as well. The suicide rates have just been terrible, even the past 5-10 years.
Oh, yes. So the weird thing of the week, Docomo and Hokkaido University are planning a 5G-based system to monitor cows.
Monitor cows? What could you get out of monitoring cows?
You can figure out where the coronavirus is moving. Kill me.
That's pretty cool.
I'll be here all week, boys and girls.
And Hokkaido actually declared a state of emergency, didn't they?
Yes, they did.
Yeah.
Those cows. Those pesky cows. They're at it again. Oh, yes, and another segment is Tokyo Panic Room, which unfortunately would be great if we could just leave it to be a segment, but because of the ongoing coronavirus pandemic, which is now officially a pandemic, according to the World Health Organization, every segment is Tokyo Panic Room. So, panic, panic, panic. Would you like some toilet paper? No, you cannot have mine.
But guys, seriously, try not to panic.
Don't panic. You can't have any toilet paper.
Yeah, I don't know if this is worth mentioning on the podcast, but this the whole idea for doing this stemmed out of Parker and I just talking about the current state of the world and the social media generation, and going into 2020, everything is a worldwide panic. Every news story.
Yes, and this is especially bittersweet for Japan because of the Olympics. Of course, the run-up to the Olympics, being here in Japan all the time, I honestly don't know how much the world was paying attention to the upcoming Tokyo Games. But at least in Japan, I mean, we've been seeing Tokyo 20 absolutely everywhere ever since the games were announced. And really, to have this epidemic happen, I mean, this really kind of hit us right around, mid-February is when it started becoming, really, really, really real.
Yeah.
And it's like being slapped in the face with a cold fish. Because the whole country, the whole Japanese public, I mean, even the international community as well, we were expecting 2020 to be this beautiful year full of international sports and cooperation and economic prosperity and oh shit, coronavirus. Yeah,
and it's gone.
Yeah, it's depressing. It really is. And I think one of the reasons why we decided, we have been talking about doing this podcast for decades, literally. But I think what really, what kind of pushed us over the edge was that we literally have nothing else to do.
Yeah. So our friends in the States and Europe as well know that, a lot of people are moving to self-isolation. And this is especially true in Japan. I mean, people are just stuck indoors right now. There isn't necessarily a direct order from the government, but I mean, people just don't want to go out right now. Bars, events, everything's closed. So yeah, people are just working from home inside. So there's no better time to start a podcast.
Well, no, and also no better time to start listening to a podcast.
Yeah.
Hi, guys.
So thank you guys for joining us today.
We're not dangerous. Promise. Oh, and so on Tokyo Panic Room, we're going to talk on divisive issues and, the sort of tinfoil hat shit that gets everybody into panic mode. Okay. Wow, I just looked this just in. Prime Minister Abe has called a state of emergency.
Oh, okay. So we're in a state of emergency right now.
Nah, I just thought I'd say that. But by the time you're listening to this, we probably will be in a state of emergency.
And the Olympics will be canceled.
That's really depressing.
Yeah,
That's probably true.
I don't know what we're going to do if there's a state of emergency. I mean, God, the economy's just
Make more podcasts.
Yeah,
lots more.
We'll make like 5 different podcasts. Do one for every day of the week.
We're eventually going to run out of pithy names.
Yeah.
Tokyo Wavy Wave.
Tokyo Wave Plus. Yeah, so current situation, COVID-19 in Japan. I saw over the weekend, Abe, I guess, he drafted a state of emergency bill, but he didn't pass it?
No. They've passed the bill, but they haven't declared a state of emergency. And the interesting thing here is that obviously they've passed the bill, so now Prime Minister Abe can declare a state of emergency at any time. But when asked by reporters, does he plan to call a state of emergency? And if so, when? He said, I will discuss this with my panel of experts.
It's under consideration, as most things are here.
Very serious consideration.
Yeah. Interesting. So it's like a ticking time bomb. He can basically drop it whenever he wants.
Yeah, I mean, it's just like, Shazam! State of emergency.
What would that entail for Japan? I mean, how would our lives be affected by a state of emergency?
Should have read the bill, bro.
Wow.
Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, welcome to Tokyo Coronaland, where all of your dreams come true.
Especially the one where you...
How was your day?
We are all going to die.
All gonna die? Wow, that is scary. I've never been so frightened in all my life.
Me neither.
So the coronavirus shock is, of course, global, and it is also affecting very deeply industry around the world, including Japan. And of course, as everyone knows, the Japanese economy, a major driver of the Japanese economy are automakers. And Japan's auto suppliers have actually had to shift their Chinese production lines to Mexico because of the lack of ability to do production in China due to coronavirus.
That's pretty impressive, though, that they have the ability to do that all the way over in Mexico.
It was, I think, what is it? Reuters reported that actually Mazda specifically was using their production line, their production network in Mexico, and actually shipping these parts used for making the cars that need to be shipped to Hiroshima via air instead of sea. And of course, that's exponentially more expensive. But the press release mentioned that at this point in time, they're really doing everything within their power to keep production online.
Oh wow. Yeah, it makes me think about just other kind of huge world events that have shocked people over the past maybe 3 years. I think the difference between COVID-19 and maybe say Brexit or certain elections in different countries that were shocking is that people could anticipate it. With Brexit, every multinational company made a decision as soon as they started talking about the bill in the UK Parliament. Every company had a Brexit plan within a month, right? But with this,
Well, they said that they had a Brexit plan.
Yeah.
Hello there, Mr. Multinational Company. What's your Brexit plan? Run!
Another anecdote on COVID-19, but, I think definitely from our perspective, we saw what was going on in China in January. And I think a lot of us in Japan were kind of sitting on our high horses thinking, oh, China, it's never going to come to Japan. We never could have imagined that it would become as big of a problem and pandemic as it has.
We will also have serious segments such as Japanese politics. Wow.
Ooh, nice name. I like it.
Japanese politics Wow will include updates on political happenings, scandals, and special guests.
Ooh.
And just to give you a tiny taste of what kind of things we'll be talking about, this is again from Reuters. They reported just a couple of days ago that a consumption tax cut here in Japan is emerging as an option in order to combat the impact from the coronavirus. And this is very interesting and ironic if you're an avid follower of Japan politics like myself and 5 other people, because the consumption tax here in Japan is what is known as a nuclear issue, which is probably not the best descriptor for an issue given 2011, but I just used it, so damn.
No, but that would be really cool if they could, offset some of the economic damage from the coronavirus by adjusting the tax.
It took so long to get the consumption tax to 10%. It's really tough for the administration to say, take away the consumption tax, because it was never popular. People have always complained whenever the government proposes. It was a huge issue when they proposed it initially, and it continues to be extremely unpopular. So, in short, the consumption tax, the people of Japan hate it, the government will probably do anything in its power to keep it and have some other sort of anti or coronavirus mitigation economic policy that does not involve removing the consumption tax. They love it.
So let's get back into the whole state of emergency and political situation.
Well, I was talking about this politics update, and my good friend Satoshi Sugiyama, who's a reporter for the Japan Times on the politics beat, wrote a great article. I really suggest everyone to read it because it kind of goes into the backstory behind what's going on and the sort of friction that's developing in the Diet right now over this state of emergency bill. And something to kind of put that into perspective, let me just read off from here. Tetsuro Fukuyama, Secretary General of the opposition Constitutional Democratic Party of Japan, blasted Abe after the news conference, saying the Prime Minister did not explain why the number of tests actually done each day remains limited. According to Health Ministry data, a total of 19,420 tests were done between January the 15th and March the 16th nationwide.
If you look at the rate of increase in all the other countries, the numbers do not match up with Japan. Japan is an outlier. So anybody who's used to doing any kind of data analysis or just looking at the numbers alone, it doesn't make sense for Japan to not have as many cases or just not have the same rate of increase that we saw on the Diamond Princess, for example.
Yes. Well, and I mean, there's several different people saying lots of different stuff about this. One thing I found interesting was I think some statistics experts looked at the correlation between the number of reported infections and the number of deaths. And they noted that the number of deaths in Japan does not jive with the number of reported infections. So at least as of the current timing, at least the last thing that I read about it, obviously this is an emerging situation, that as of right now, I think there are about 30-ish deaths from coronavirus here in Japan. And they said that around 100 infections per 1 death is around the going rate right now.
Yeah.
I don't know what BetSafe and Patty Power have to say about this, but...
No, yeah, 1% seems... I think the most reliable data we have right now is Korea, just because they've been doing aggressive testing.
Drive-through testing!
Yeah, brilliant. Why is not every country doing that? But,
well, we have drive-by shootings in America.
You saw in America, people are lining up to get guns now. Big segue. But on the topic of the death rate, it seems to be 1% or less with a huge sample size, such as South Korea. So yeah, same thing in Iran. They had I think a 7 to 10% death rate as soon as it hit the country. So obviously the number of reported cases is not accurate. And this, there's a lot of things that affect this. It's not just a political thing. It's also people not wanting to go to the doctor or...
Yeah, I mean, I think a lot of people are afraid to go to the doctor, especially overseas, because obviously if there's a coronavirus epidemic and you go to the hospital, there might be lots of other people who have coronavirus. And even if you didn't have it when you went to get checked for it, you might get it at the hospital. So a lot of people are really scared about that. And also in Japan, especially, we have an issue with there are only so many medical facilities in Japan that have the test for coronavirus. So there were reports that a lot of people who wanted to get tested, whether they are positive for coronavirus, were actually being turned away from these medical facilities. That really sucks.
Yeah, there's a bureaucratic issue too. Like I think they're trying to figure out who's responsible for actually testing. So if you go to the clinic says, "Oh, go to what is it called? There's a government facility where
somewhere else." I think that's where it's called.
Yeah.
Go somewhere else to get tested.
Yeah, so they tell you to go somewhere else. You go to the somewhere else place, and they say, no, you go to the clinic to get tested. In fact, that's the exact same problem in America right now. So
yes, well, and also you've got this issue, and I mean this is a very serious issue, and there's no easy solution, that some people are just assholes. Like this one guy, I'm sure you saw the news reports. There was this one middle-aged male who I think got infected in, what was it, Nagoya?
is this the guy that went on the train?
He didn't just go on the train. He actually, after being told the news that he was positive for coronavirus, he went straight to a Philippine pub and basically tried to rub himself all over a Philippine bar hostess.
Oh my God. I'm shaking my head right now.
There's actually video, I think like security camera footage or some sort of recording that I saw on television of him actually saying to himself when no one was sitting next to him, "I'm going to get all of these guys."
Wow.
That is some nasty stuff.
Dear God. This is the kind of stuff that you don't want to hear. This is the kind of stuff that makes people just stay in their houses forever, you know?
Yeah, well, but the thing is that, I mean, we're both Americans, and I mean, I hate to knock on America. No, that's a lie. I do like to knock on America.
I think we both do. Yeah.
But, I mean, honestly, being in Japan, obviously, I'm worried, I'm concerned, I'm taking precautions, I'm washing my hands until they fall off, and using lots of the good kind of alcohol and less of the bad kind of alcohol. But one thing I do think is that when you look at, the average person in Japan who is hearing this news, obviously there's panic buying, people are staying indoors, and, people are being affected. Their daily activities, their routines, their work schedules are being severely affected by the coronavirus panic. But I think you see a lot of people kind of trying to, what is that old British saying?
Keep calm and carry on.
Keep calm and carry on, which is very ironic because the people in the UK right now apparently are not doing that, but they are in Japan. So, yes, apparently Japan is just the same as the UK in the 1960s. Fun fact. But in the United States, I mean, you see the news reports and you hear the sort of things that they're saying on CNN and Fox News. And I mean, we were watching the presidential election news, and I was watching that and thinking, wow, this is crazy. And then seeing the reports of people's reactions to the coronavirus and the things that people were doing and the panic buying and the, ridiculous hoarding and profiteering. And I thought to myself, man, Japan is awesome.
Yeah, I'd say like the public safety here, obviously a lot better. And I've talked to friends in America too. And I think the biggest decision that those of us who are expats that live in Japan have had to make recently, it's, if we do get sick, do we want to get sick in Japan or do we want to get sick back in the States?
Yes, well, a lot of people misunderstand that Japan doesn't have exactly universal healthcare. There is a national healthcare system, which by many global standards is extremely good and effective. It is, of course, very expensive, and a lot of the Japanese budget deficit is due to the expenditures caused by the national healthcare system. So I cannot say that it's a perfect system, but when it comes to there is a global virus epidemic and I don't want to die, it's pretty neato.
Yeah. But yeah, you said something interesting. Yeah, Japan has the largest national debt, I think, of any country in the world.
Yes, and of course, this is a big issue around the world, countries kind of driving themselves into debt. One interesting thing about the Japanese debt, though, is that, of course, it's widely known that most of the debt is owned domestically.
Right.
So it's almost like we owe us money. Ha ha.
Keep it in the same ecosystem.
Yes.
Yeah.
And so I don't think, obviously people complain about the national debt from time to time, but you never really see it come to a head like you do in Greece or other countries which had a lot of foreign borrowing, and because of that had lots of austerity measures, and bad stuff happened.
Right. Yeah, this is similar to the U.S. right now. I mean, there's so much real estate buying by Chinese. And also the U.S.'s entire manufacturing pipeline and supply chain is from China. It's all about exposure. The U.S. is far more exposed to, manufacturing in China, for example.
No, you're absolutely right. There's actually an old saying, and I always hear, obviously people who remember Japan as number one in the 70s and the 80s especially. The saying was always, though, that because of the strong relationship between the United States and Japan, and also the security dependence of Japan on the United States security umbrella, there was always a saying kind of back in the day that when the United States coughs, Japan catches a cold. However, now in 2020, I feel like the case has shifted, and now it's China has caught a cold and the world is gonna die.
Yeah, that's a pretty it's dramatic change, but
we're all gonna die, folks.
We are all going to die.
All gonna die?
Wow. Just one more anecdote on healthcare in Japan and general safety. We both experienced how incredible Japan is safety-wise. I feel overly safe here. When I go back to Florida and Miami, I mean, God, man, it's nuts. It's like when I go back to the States now, it's like whatever happens. God knows what the fuck's gonna happen.
I have to say, Japan, and I've been here, I think, about 13 years now. And Japan will make you a very risk-averse person. I think, it's every time I go back to America, it just becomes more and more just frightening. And I don't think that's necessarily a factor of the fact that factor of America becoming more dangerous. Rather, the reality is that being in Japan and not having, your guard up all the time. Your guard, it's not like riding a bicycle, your guard. You apparently, if you don't use it, you lose it. Everywhere you don't want to be. And so when I'm back in my hometown, I'll be going out with friends, and I'll be, looking around, and I'll be trying to overcompensate for my lack of natural guard. And they look at me like, dude, are you okay? You look scared. And I have to say, no.
But yeah, it's a fact. I mean,
Japan makes you chicken, man. That's what it is. Japan makes you chicken.
You get too comfortable living here. And I've heard the same thing from friends that live in South Korea as well.
Yeah. But you know what, man? Chicken is delicious.
It is.
Well, there's a lot of gloom and doom going on with the coronavirus, but things aren't all bad. And some companies are actually going through boom times because of the special demand created by all of this panic buying. For instance, Reuters also reported that Amazon is about to hire 100,000 workers as these online orders have surged on coronavirus worries.
Yeah, I'm not surprised. I mean, I just ordered 2 things on Amazon this morning. Yeah.
What was that?
A bookshelf. They have the new AR thing, so you can place the furniture. Like before you buy it, you can place it. You hold your phone up, you put it, in the room, and you can actually see where it would set and everything.
Yeah, I totally get where you're coming from, but you do realize what you just said.
What is it?
Because of coronavirus, you bought a bookshelf?
Yeah, I have too many books. I've been at home so much, right? I've been in my apartment, and I've realized I have stacks of books everywhere, and I have a couple of bookshelves, but I need yet another one. So I got a bookshelf. I got some water purification stuff. So yeah. It's I think
Inside the mind of Aaron Randall. Oh my God, coronavirus might die. What am I gonna do? I need to purify water and organize my books.
it's bad, man.
Sorry to dunk on you, but
I got books all
that's
over the
hilarious.
place. But yeah.
Well, I mean, I'll have to aim the rocket launcher at myself now because my first coronavirus panic buy was a set of microphones and a podcast mixer because my panic knee-jerk reaction to the coronavirus epidemic was, oh my God, I have to start podcasting.
Good reaction.
Man, I'm going to live stream me dying from the coronavirus. It's going to be awesome.
Ooh, that's a great idea. We should start a Twitch channel and just like after one of us gets infected. Oh, so many people are going to do that.
Whoa, he's actually twitching now. I didn't know that's what it meant.
Donate money to help me survive the coronavirus. Oh, man.
Go fund me, bro. And then the coronavirus battle fund becomes the funeral fund.
Yeah, that sounds like the way to do it. You know what's funny? I panicked about coronavirus, I think, right at the beginning of February. And I called a lot of my friends who live in Japan because I had heard from a lot of PhDs and doctors from the UK that this is very serious, and 80% of the world's population will be infected, is what I heard. I think February 1st or 2nd. And this is when news was just breaking. Things were bad in China, but they were just bad in China at this point. And so I'm like, okay, we're right next to China. We have so many Chinese tourists for the
Lunar New Year.
Yeah. We have so many Chinese tourists in Japan for the Chinese Lunar New Year. So for anybody coming from China to Japan, on average, they'll come back 7 times.
Lucky 7.
So we have a huge number of Chinese tourists here, and this was all going on right after things were hitting the fan in China with COVID-19.
We're recording this podcast today here in my office in Harajuku, and actually we're right off of Omotesando, which is one of Japan's premier shopping streets. Really in Japan, you've got Ginza and you've got Omotesando, and that's where you have Louis Vuitton, Gucci, Prada, Pucci, Fucci, Mucci, and all the other Uchis. And really, going up and down Omotesando, the street, is always quite difficult because there are so many tourists, of course, from all around the world. But especially you'll notice during the Lunar New Year, the throngs. I mean, the really massive amounts of tourism coming in from China, and even not during a major holiday season, you see a lot of tourists. They're coming here. They're looking at the shops. They're buying. They're going to restaurants. They're of course contributing to the economy here. And really, ever since this epidemic became serious and the inflows of tourists came to a screeching halt, it is empty. And I mean, I've already seen some stores here in the Harajuku area going out of business, and it's sobering to see the really kind of the wheels coming to a screeching halt here on the shopping economy and on the eating out economy here locally as well.
It's totally nuts, man. It's like we're in a parallel universe right now because, like we talked about earlier, for the past 7 years, Japan has been, anyone in the tourism industry or the food and drink industry, I mean, they've been prepping for this, been branding, been putting so much work into it. I've heard to a lot of travel agencies. Travel agencies are still a thing here in Japan, by the way, for people who don't know.
Travel agencies.
Yeah, there's all these reports about the biggest travel agencies in Japan are seeing the worst numbers ever. We know
already 2 things that I've seen coming from the United States side are the airline industry, which only a few weeks ago was there were reports that the industry was not expecting that bad of a hit from the coronavirus outbreak. But already the latest reports have come in, at least as of today, that the airline industry is actually asking the Trump administration for bailouts. The other industry asking for bailouts from the Trump administration are casinos.
Casinos, really?
No, that's it's not a joke.
You know, we have a lot of casinos in Florida.
Oh, that's right. You've got Hard Rock.
Hard Rock and...
Well, actually, the Hard Rock Casino is owned by the Seminole tribe.
Ah, right. Yeah, so to get us started, I guess we should kind of get a self-introduction going. So
yes, who are these two people and why are they so annoying?
So Parker, how long have you been in Japan for?
I've been in Japan for 13 years.
13.
Lucky 13, yeah.
Nice.
And so I came to Japan in 2007. I'm originally from Tennessee in the United States, which, if you've never heard of Tennessee, we're famous for two things, whiskey and the waltz.
The waltz?
The Tennessee waltz.
Ah, is that some kind of dance?
I think so. And, man, Aaron, how long have you been in Japan?
I've been here almost 10 years, right at 9 right now.
Number nine.
So yeah, I've been here 9 years. Similar to you, I came here originally to go to school. Did grad school out here, worked for domestic Japanese companies for a while. Been working in Tokyo for about the same amount of time, 9 years. I did a podcast, as you know.
Whoa, tell me about your podcast.
Yes. So we were actually the #1 podcast in Japan for 2014, 2015. It was called American Hot Topics. So
spicy.
Some of you listening might know. So yeah, I'm Aaron from American Hot Topics.
I'm Parker from absolutely nothing.
So some of you listening might have heard about the podcast.
What did you talk about on American Hot Topics?
So American Hot Topics was birthed out of the idea...
Birthed.
Yeah. So, we looked at a lot of other podcasts on the podcast store in Japan, and a lot of them were trying to achieve the same thing. They were like bilingual podcasts where they would mix English and Japanese, but they were like an hour to 3 hours long. There was no good formatting. And so me and this other guy that I did the podcast with were like, hey, why don't we do like 20 to 30 minute segments? Make it like a TV show with like specific segments, specific topics.
Wow, segments. What an original idea.
But I got to say, there was really good timing for us. When we
like segments.
When we did this podcast, there was great timing. The podcast app just appeared on the iPhone for the iPhone update.
Poof.
So out of nowhere, everyone on their home screen has this purple podcast app. What the hell is this? People are going to be clicking it. So we're like, okay, we need to get something on there ASAP. And this is around the same time that Trump was trending in America. So there were so many fun and interesting things to talk about. It's called American Hot Topics because we talked about shit that was going on in America, explained it for the Japanese audience.
Interesting. Well, I've actually never done a podcast before, but I was the producer of a podcast on Japanese politics called Tokyo on Fire. And I've always been on the other side of the microphone, so you can probably tell, lovely viewers, that I sound like ass.
Nah, you sound good, man. I'm glad you're finally debuting as a frontman on a podcast format. I think this has been a long time coming for sure.
Yes, well, unfortunately, you're going to have to stick with me. I'm like a bad girlfriend. Just won't go away.
Ain't nobody got time for that.
Well, so, we're good friends, obviously. We've known each other for a long, long time.
Yeah.
And, of course, we also do some work together. So, Aaron, of course, I know you as, of course, not just an awesome friend and a badass sound engineer, DJ, podcaster, and all-around creative dude, but also you're a marketing expert. And we do also work together in a professional capacity because I actually, a couple of years ago, started my own company here in Tokyo called Parthenon Japan, and I do public relations consulting. So especially as PR and marketing become more and more integrated in various campaigns, we do a lot of work together on the digital side. We also like to talk into microphones. So.
As Parker was saying, we've collaborated in a lot of different capacities. So right now we're mainly focused on digital marketing and also web development, web design.
Web.
Lots of webs.
It's a series of tubes.
If you have a really long tube.
Well, these mics also look like tubes. It's just it's just a lot of tubes today. It's just a, tubey tube. Michael Jackson recorded Thriller on these mics.
The mics we're using right now.
Yeah.
Wow.
Well, no, the SM7, and so this is the SM7B.
Ah.
So this is like the new version that's made in Mexico.
Welcome to Tokyo Wave.
Tokyo Wave. Well, we started Tokyo Wave, I think, for two major reasons. Of course, most emerging reason being, of course, the coronavirus global epidemic, and thinking that, wow, I sure would like to do a cool podcast on Japan before I die. And, of course, the other reason being that there are a lot of podcasts, of course, on Japan, and people, of course, across Japan, lots of people based in Tokyo, talking about, various things and various niches. But really, I never really got into listening to podcasts so much myself, because there wasn't really that right mix of, obviously, we're here in Japan, we're foreigners, Americans, and we have this certain perspective, and we have certain shared experiences, and there are various channels and YouTubes and podcasts, etc., where people are kind of sharing their slice of life with the world. But I, looking at what was available, didn't really see something that I felt represented the sort of experiences that we are having, because nobody has cloned us yet, of course.
Yeah.
Thank God.
On that point, I think it's worth pointing out too, Parker and I are, I think, in a much different community in Japan than a lot of other foreigners that come here.
AKA, we have no friends.
But, it's really popular on YouTube and on blogs for people that are here maybe teaching English or for some other random reason in Japan, and they just talk about that. I think you and I have a very unique experience here, and a lot of our friends too.
Yes, well, I don't know what you would call us. We're kind of like millennial semi-lifers. We haven't been here for 40 years. We didn't come here on the black ships, but we've been here for a long time, and we'll probably stay unless they kick us out. Right.
We both started our own businesses here as well. I mean, yeah. I'm not trying to talk us up too much, but...
Yeah, we suck. So, listeners, don't be us.
Yeah. Don't go this deep. We went too deep. Help us get out.
You're gonna wake up. You're gonna be in your 30s, and you're gonna be a loser.
This podcast is a cry for help.
Please
get us the fuck out of here.
We have corona, but no limes.
So what did you accomplish in Japan, boy? I got the coronavirus.
Whoa! Totally awesome! And so really on Tokyo Wave, I really want to get into the sort of, hot topics that are not American. And by the way... And get into the issues that we see, and the sort of news, because obviously, or not obviously, but one note for our listeners is that this podcast is in English, but both Aaron and I are fluent in Japanese, so we consume a lot of our news in Japanese. So we're seeing what's going on and interpreting it in our own special silly way.
Yeah,
I don't know where I was going with that.
No, I felt for a long time that just in a really weird spot. I think I'm probably gonna get a little too lethargic here, but coming to Japan, coming here as a student first and studying the language first.
Well, just like talk like kind of be self-depreciating.
Self-depreciating.
Self-deprecating.
Self-deprecating.
Defecating.
It's been a wild experience. We both came here as students first, so I think that gave us a much different lens into the country. But it's also given us, I think there's this weird, almost negative side where we're almost in too deep. We can pick up on certain nuances a little bit too much, and we're a lot of people that are here that I feel like they're in a constant state of euphoria.
Yeah, you've got the rose-colored glasses. I mean, I think that happens within, expatriate communities around the world. I mean, you experience the good life and you don't understand the language, so you might not pick up on the locals talking shit about you all the time. So you just think that just really friendly, and they're laughing with you, not at you.
Exactly. That pretty much sums it up. But
no, I agree with you that it's kind of like I feel like I've never been to Burning Man, but I feel like being kind of a lifer in Japan is kind of like going to Burning Man, except for you never leave.
wow, that's a really good analogy. Yeah.
The glow sticks just keep on glowing. I've never been to Burning Man, but I would like to go someday. I mean, you've never been either, right?
No. I went to Bonnaroo.
Ooh, that's funny because that's in Tennessee.
Yeah.
Another big thing that happens in Tennessee that I've never been to.
Dude, Bonnaroo is... You've heard stories about Bonnaroo, right?
The only thing that I know firsthand about Bonnaroo is that one of my friends during high school was arrested for selling drugs at Bonnaroo.
Oh, he's very unlucky because everybody sells drugs at Bonnaroo.
Oops. Apparently, the Coffee County Jail sucks.
No, but I mean, like...
You heard it here first on Tokyo Wave.
It's bringing back memories. Yeah. So I guess, yeah, I did go to Tennessee maybe 3 or 4 times when I was in high school. Funny enough, me and my dad and a bunch of friends, we drove up there. And, it's... In Florida, we don't really have a lot of dust, and we don't have mud, right? So it's all sand in Florida. So it's very shocking to have this music festival where everybody's kicking around dust and smoking weed everywhere. So there's just like, it's almost like fog that's just setting like maybe 3 feet above the ground.
If it's a weed smoke and mud fog, it's like a wog?
Yeah, it's a wog. Everyone is living in a wog for like 5 days. So by the 3rd day, you are just completely brain dead. I mean, you can't even think.
Wow, but you can listen to really good live music.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Bonnaroo, guys. Didn't they cancel Bonnaroo this year because of the coronavirus?
I have no doubt. That's the number one place they should cancel. Dear God. Talk about people being too close. Dear God. Oh, man.
I wonder what's going to happen. I mean, obviously, there's the Olympics, which are, really at high risk of cancellation or at least postponement at this point in time. But I mean, around the world, music festivals, I know in the world of electronic music, at least, the winter edition of Tomorrowland, which was scheduled to be in the French Alps, has been canceled.
Oh, geez. Yeah. So I have some market info.
Oh, yeah. Let's get the market update.
All right. So it's time
Tokyo Wave market update.
All right. So the news is really bad. So looking at the U.S. markets, let's start off with Monday this week, so March 16th. So the Dow recorded its worst one-day point drop in history.
Wow.
Yeah, really bad. So the S&P 500 finished down nearly 12%. The NASDAQ composite ended down at 12.3%. So why is 12% such a big deal? A stock only has a 10% chance of moving 10%. Try to let that sink in. A 10% chance of moving 10%. Basically, there's a very low chance that a single stock will move up or down 10% in a single day. With the 12% decrease here, we're talking about a stock index that measures stock performance of 500 large companies listed in the United States. That's the S&P 500. The fact that that dropped 12% is a very bad sign. So things aren't great right now.
Well, also in Japan, I believe the Nikkei had the worst one-day drop since the bubble period. That's right. It was the worst one-day drop in Nikkei stock index history since the burst of the Japanese economic bubble that happened in 1989, which is ironically the year that I was born.
Yeah. It's the U.S. too, I think. So this is for Monday, but I think last week there was even a worse drop. That was first it was as bad as the drop in 87, and now it's the worst drop ever.
There's the bad drop in the U.S., worst drop in Japan, and then an even worse drop when Tokyo Wave comes out.
Yeah. So another interesting thing to look at too in these kinds of times to gauge where things are. And I really want to preface talking about markets this year. We're in an election year. So volatility is always going to be high in an election year. I I think we both know who's going to become president again.
Wink, wink, nudge, nudge.
So, and investors know this too, right? But even then, it's really amazing. The volatility index always skyrockets during an election year. So we look at the VIX, which is a measure of stock market volatility. Yeah, so this just measures volatility going up or down. So anytime the VIX is increasing dramatically, it's usually not a good sign. And this is all supposedly based off of coronavirus fears ripping through Wall Street. So this takes out the previous record that was set in 2008 on October 24th, according to Refinitiv.
Damn.
Yeah, so selling was so extreme that trading on the New York Stock Exchange was halted for 15 minutes. So this is the third time that this has happened, actually. And this is always a bad thing. A lot of third-party programs that allow you to trade stock, like Robinhood as well, have had sudden shutdowns, So a lot of this is caused by automated trading algorithms.
Well, and if you think about that as a metaphor, I mean, it's like almost, it's like they're having a marathon and someone whoops everybody's ass so bad that they have to stop the race for 15 minutes.
Exactly. Yeah, but
wait a second. It actually means that everybody's ass is getting whooped so bad that they have to stop the race.
Exactly. It's almost like they determine that the rules are unfair or the trading grounds are unfair, so they have to kind of reassess everything.
Tell us your stock tips on Tokyo Wave.
Well, I think a lot of this negativity in the stock market is exacerbated by the amount of faith that we've put into automated trading. So, whenever the volatility index spikes, whenever we see these big drops of more than 10% on large index funds, these automated trading systems have certain thresholds where they'll activate large volume orders, large volume sells if these thresholds are met. And like I said earlier, there's a 10% chance that it's going to move 10%. A lot of these trading systems are set to activate almost like emergency measures, emergency selling, if it drops or raises 10%, in fact. And that's what's been happening the past few days. So, there's a lot of factors that are making the situation even worse.
Hearing all of this financial gloom and doom really reminds me about the time, right after I came to Japan in 2007. And actually, when I first came to Japan and I was in my first year of university, I was really into finance and I wanted to, be an iBanker. I actually, literally the company that I thought was the coolest when I was in my first year of college was Lehman Brothers. I thought, wouldn't it be so cool if I could be a trader for Lehman Brothers in Tokyo? Mm-hmm. And then 2008 rolled around and didn't want to be an iBanker anymore. Funny how that works.
Yeah.
But definitely don't want to be an iBanker now. So sorry, iBankers. I don't want to be you. Not anymore. Last but not least, another segment, and I think probably the last segment that we'll be introducing on episode 0 is Let's Talk About Creative Stuff Time. Great name, isn't it?
I like it.
And on Let's Talk About Creative Stuff Time, we're going to talk about music, art, events, all the events that are going on right now. We might not be talking about events in the near future. We're also going to try and feature like a creator of the month. And you were saying, what is it? The Korean director who won 4 Academy Awards.
Yeah, so Bong Joon-ho, he actually won 4 Academy Awards, including one for Best Picture. So the first Asian and Korean director to win the Best Picture at the Academy Awards. That's quite a big deal. I saw the movie actually really early.
Parasite, right?
Yeah, Parasite, yeah. So yeah, I got to see Parasite really early on a plane. And I hate watching movies on planes because the audio always sucks. But I forget what airline it was. I have these Sony headphones and I plugged it in. And I kid you not, I felt like I was in a movie theater. The audio was so good.
Dude, come on. You drop that airline name. I think airlines could use a boost right now.
Yeah, I totally forgot.
Even from Tokyo Wave.
I think it was British Airways. That was the airline.
This audio is fantastic.
But damn, man. Oh my God. I really don't like flying. I'm a nervous flyer. But
Word.
this movie, I was I was transported into the world of this movie immediately from the beginning.
And everyone's talking about this movie except for in Japan, which has radio silence, because, as you may know, dear listeners, Japan and Korea kind of hate each other.
Yeah, unfortunately. But when I started learning Japanese, a lot of my Asian friends at university were like, Aaron, if you go to Japan, you need to understand that they all hate each other. Chinese, Koreans, Japanese. I was like, nah, that can't be true. Look at everyone at universities getting along and having a great time, but they were right.
It's unfortunate. I mean, there's lots of history that as Americans we like to not touch with a very long pole. But it's kind of. I mean, I think it's especially it's a big sting for Japan because, of course, during Japan's golden age of cinema, the age of Kurosawa and his acolytes and other major directors from the 1960s, I think that was still a time, at least in the United States, which of course, because of Hollywood, is still very much the center of the movie world. It just wasn't a time where, a non-American film, especially a film from Asia, would be seriously considered or, given accolades or merits on the same level as an American film because of, racism.
Yeah, to Japan's credit, I mean, Japan kind of pioneered filmmaking with, especially with Kurosawa. And then, when George Lucas and Steven Spielberg were studying film in college, the references they used were all Japanese. They used Japanese film and the way cinematography and the way film is done here. And then I think it's really interesting. I think music had a very similar progression too. And Korea has just kind of surprised a lot of people recently. I think for me personally, I've been paying attention to Korea since I got here in Japan about 9 years ago. I had a lot of Korean classmates that showed me Korean music, not just K-pop, but music from Korea. And
I think, a couple of years ago, really with that, the kind of Gangnam style boom, that really kind of set the Korean music scene global. And since then, really, I mean, you've seen this huge surge in global interest in, music coming from South Korea.
Yeah.
And we haven't really seen a similar boom with Japanese music. Of course, J-pop and idol music and its funny friends are quite popular in the Asian continent, but really outside of Asia, Japanese music still has somewhat limited popularity compared to Korean music.
Right. I mean, being a huge fan of 1970s Japanese music, it's kind of disheartening to see the path that modern Japanese music has taken.
Well, I mean, I agree with you, and that's not to knock on Japanese music. I mean, there are a lot of really cool artists out there even today, but I'm also an aficionado of all sorts of old stuff, and for instance, I love enka. And of course, people are still making enka. There are still enka artists here in 2020, but the kind of traditional, it was actually, enka is actually not actual traditional Japanese music. It's actually the kind of Japanese interpretation of kind of Western style music and really kind of ballad style songwriting and kind of sad, somber themes. And at least when I was in university and kind of listening to people sing karaoke here and kind of singing enka, I thought, wow, this is cool. Everybody's, talking about, getting drunk in kabukicho, and that's what I do. So I'd like to sing about that. What are the lyrics? And so I got really into enka. And even, nowadays when I go to karaoke, which I haven't been doing very recently because of a certain corona-related virus thing, but yeah, man, whenever I go to karaoke, I love to sing enka, and I always sing the old songs though because they're classic. They've got this tone, this tempo, and they have this vibe that I don't really feel in some of the more recent music. And I actually, I'm probably gonna alienate most of the audience here today, but I think to a certain degree, you can say the same thing for modern Western music as well. I feel like we've lost something in the digital age.
Absolutely, I agree 100%. And on the note of Enka, I think Enka and Japanese ballads, that's something that is untouchable. Japan does it so well. There's a really famous half Japanese, half Australian artist called Joji. A lot of people know him as Filthy Frank. He was a famous YouTuber. I think in an interview, he was asked about, why the hell did he go from being this insane YouTuber to making ballad, slow and very sad, somber music? And he said, I grew up in Japan. I love the ballads. I love the way that they make this music. And really, I think Enka and ballads, Enka's been around for a while, but ballads really in the 1980s in Japan really picked up.
Yes, well, and it was almost interesting because the 1980s were like the real glitzy heyday of the Japanese economic miracle, and I think it was almost, maybe it's kind of a referendum on the high times. People want to kind of hear about some depressing stuff because during their day-to-day life everything is dandy. So probably right around now, people want to listen to the music of the 70s, where everybody's a love machine because reality is depressing. And so, we were talking about Enka, and you were saying that Enka is kind of a basis for vaporwave, which you got me into.
Yes. So I'm sure a lot of people have heard this name vaporwave. There's lots of variations of it as well. But a common theme in vaporwave music is it takes and samples sounds from 1970s, 1980s Japanese records, a lot of which, haven't been played since the 70s or 80s. They've kind of lost, right? So maybe you've heard of Maria Takeuchi, Plastic Love. It's been one of the most explosive kind of vaporwave niche Japanese tracks to come out on YouTube the past couple of years, and was actually taken down and then re-uploaded.
Because I think a lot of vaporwave still has a bit of an issue with copyright because they're sampling, old Japanese songs which are still subject to copyright.
Exactly.
And really, this is a serious issue, and hopefully this will be solved eventually. But there's a huge problem globally with music and copyright, and obviously things are locked up in various rights and copyright issues, and so a lot of old stuff, it's good stuff and you should hear it and should be able to listen to it, but you don't have an opportunity because even in digital medium, for instance, even on this podcast, if we play these copyrighted songs, we could be blacklisted, even sued for copyright infringement.
Absolutely, yeah. That's why all the music on Tokyo Wave is originally created by us.
Mainly Aaron.
Yeah, but
unless it sounds bad, then it's probably me. And yeah, really, vaporwave, and you got me into vaporwave and thinking about it, and also just kind of putting, past, present, future, and I don't know what it is about this epidemic, but it kind of puts things into perspective and makes you kind of think about the bigger picture because, I think this is one of those times in our lives and kind of times maybe around the world where people are kind of looking at, what they're doing and culture and the way things are and the way people behave and thinking about it like, what if this is it? What if everybody's going to die? What if it's not a meteor? What if we just all die of this, crazy virus? So, I think that people are kind of reassessing that, the various barriers on our society. Copyright is one of those, and culture, and, you've got, racism and prejudice around the world. We talked about, the kind of remaining animosity between Japanese, Koreans, and Chinese. And that's not to say that they all hate each other, but just a couple of them are, they really don't like each other.
Yeah.
But, I think on that note, just, man, I feel, I was listening to lots of podcasts kind of preparing for Tokyo Wave, and I listened to one podcast. It was actually the infamous Joe Rogan Experience podcast where, Elon Musk hits the blunt.
That's my favorite podcast ever.
The blunt that went around the world. Yeah. And actually watching, it's 2.5 hours. He only hits the blunt once.
Right.
And that's the part that everybody remembers. But at the end of that podcast, the message that they, wanted to share. And of course, the Elon Musk podcast, among podcasts, probably one of the most listened to podcasts in existence. And the message that they shared at the end, I think this is something that really applies, especially in this trying time with the coronavirus global epidemic, is that, don't forget about love, and don't forget about, the common good, and kind of loving and respecting your common man. And also don't forget that, obviously on the internet, we can go anonymous and say all sorts of disgusting, nasty things about each other with, relative impunity, but you don't have to do that. And maybe you shouldn't do that. Maybe, we need a little bit more love in the world.
Yeah, I have to agree with you 100%.
I love you, man.
I love you too, man.
We're gonna die, man.
It's an excellent time for self-reflection. It's an excellent time for people to invest in themselves.
It's also an excellent time to start listening to Tokyo Wave.
Tokyo Wave.
And, we really hope you enjoyed episode 0 of Tokyo Wave. Please subscribe to this podcast on Apple, Spotify, or via Pirate Radio. Well, maybe not that last one. That'll probably get you arrested. But, this was awesome. Well, not really terrible, but we'll try again next time.
Yeah, thank you guys so much for tuning in and listening.
Please hit that subscribe button once there is a subscribe button.